China has been one of the major beneficiaries of globalization in the last 20 years, but it faces growing challenges with multilateral trade under threat. The HKTDC's Nicholas Kwan caught up with Andrew Sheng, president of the independent think tank Fung Global Institute. The former World Bank official offers his insights on how China should respond to those challenges.
Going forward, what do you think China should do in terms of its development policy as well as trade policy in addressing this kind of uncertainty in the multilateral trade system?
Well, I think people should ignore the noise, although you can't completely ignore it, and focus on the signal. Before WTO, people within China said China will be the biggest loser of WTO, right? And that's why the rest of the members said, look, here are all the conditions that you need to open up. And yes, preparing for WTO, entering into WTO has been painful for China, but there is no doubt, to everybody's surprise, to a lot of people's surprise, put it this way, China was the biggest winner from WTO. And if it is so, China should be a very major partner, and I believe it is, a supporter of the multilateral system, right? Just as Hong Kong is a very major supporter of the multilateral system. Now, the issue is fairly clear if you understand the 12 five-year plans of China. The official policy is very clear, right? The growth in global exports to the advanced markets, the East-West trade will become much more slower growing than future South-South trade, and also internal trade, right? China, India, Brazil, Indonesia, the larger South Africa, all these have very large populations and therefore very large domestic markets. And that's what needs to grow, right? But in order to grow this, you really need, better standards, better distribution systems, better tax systems, less domestic barriers, non-tariff barriers, improvements, and also the improvements in the trade within the emerging markets. So if you really understand the 12 five-year plan very carefully, underlying that is a strategic strategy of growth, moving away from exports towards a more domestic, a rebalancing toward a domestic engine of growth, which means domestic consumption, right? And that implies also, higher income levels, which is exactly balancing the inequality issues, and also, sustainability, which is increasingly much more important, not just for China, but globally, right? Global supply chains must meet global, sustainability and green standards, as well as more ethical issues such as, exploitation, of labor, et cetera. So the game is changing, and the game is fundamentally changing because the larger emerging markets are increasingly looking a little bit more inward, but also relies upon the global trading system as the engine of growth. But that global system will be less on the advanced markets, not because the less advanced markets are protecting themselves, but because they are mature markets and their capacity for growth is limited. Whereas the future of trade, production, and income and consumption will be in the emerging markets. And so leading emerging markets like China, will increasingly be setting the standards for production domestically, and hopefully through the making the goods that the Indonesia wants, the Brazil wants, the Africa wants, Central Asia wants, Chinese production will change accordingly. Or maybe it will change because they meet the standards in a very, very different manner. So I think there are very major, trends that are changing the whole ball game, but WTO still plays a very major role in this. And we can clearly see some major changes in negotiations on the investment pact, on maybe the value added, on the services area, which hopefully all of this would be beneficial for global trade, and investments.